Hello, people of YouTube! I am WaspStar986, and this is Random Nation Studios. And welcome to our channel's third video and the second installment of Who's On First. For those of you who did not read the description info back in part 1, I apologize for putting it there in the first place. I was so excited to get my first ever theory video up that I completely forgot to mention the whole idea behind this video series in its first video. So before we move on to part 2 of my FNAF theory, let me just give you a quick rundown of what Who's On First is all about. So hopefully at least some of you got the reference to famous comedy duo Abbott and Costello, but if you didn't, that's fine. I didn't even get the joke myself until I went and saw the skit on YouTube. If you want to watch it just because it's hilarious and enjoy a little comedy history, there's a link in the description that will let you do just that. And yes, it is about baseball. Basically, the reason I chose to call the video series Who's On First was simply because I could. It was just a fun sounding name for a fun video series. I mean, it is my channel after all, and we are called Random Nations. In each theory video I upload, I will be pitching my ideas to viewers to contemplate on and use to formulate their own theories. Hopefully another YouTuber will catch what I'm talking about in my video and share their thoughts in a video of their own, preferably giving Random Nations a shout out in said video. So the person who is on first is the one who actually catches these ideas I pitch and runs with them and makes their own video. Or at least that's the idea. Regardless of whether anyone actually does this or not, I will almost certainly make at least one follow-up video for each theory video I upload. Mainly because, just like in part 1 of this theory, I'll be dropping little hints to what my theory is about in hopes that someone will figure out what they mean and either provide their answers in the comments or by making their own video. And if you do make a video, please share a link to it, like maybe in the comments of one of my videos so that I and everyone else can check it out. But that's enough of that. Let's get to the real reason you clicked on this video. Let's talk FNAF. Okay, so back in part 1, I mentioned several reasons why it seems almost impossible for Captain Foxy, or at least some recognizable incarnation of him, to not be featured at the Mega Pizzaplex. The most compelling evidence being all the various components and callbacks to the Captain Foxy's Pirate Adventure ride, which was originally a minigame featured in FNAF VR's Curse of Dreadbear Halloween DLC. The fact that all these parts from the ride are found throughout the mall seems to suggest that Fazbear Entertainment built a Pirate Adventure ride IRL, and it was presumably featured at the Mega Pizzaplex. If that's the case, then Captain Foxy would have to be here because he was the MC. He was the host of the ride in the Curse of Dreadbear. What's more, all of the branding elements, merchandise, and the existence of Kids Cove suggests that Foxy is a very high-earning and popular Fazbear IP. It seems very strange that such a popular character wouldn't be featured at their biggest location to date. However, I also touched on the fact that Toy Foxy was simply abandoned and left to its fate to eventually give rise to Mangle, and that Glamrock Bonnie was left decommissioned and replaced by Montgomery Gator rather than having a new one being built. Something that details in Vanessa's threats to scrap Freddy imply would be fairly simple to do, and I'll touch on that a little bit more later in this video. The long of the short of it is that Fazbear Entertainment sucks when it comes to their investments. If they were willing to abandon one of their oldest and popular IPs so easily like they did with Bonnie, who's to say they wouldn't do so again? especially if it seemed like the easiest and least expensive option. However, if nothing else, I hope that you at least remember the 2 theory hints I gave at the end of part 1. If you were able to decipher what they were hinting at, congratulations. If not, don't feel too bad. To say that FNAF is complicated is, being nice. But rest assured, all will become clear soon enough. Okay, so the first theory hint was this. Looking at Foxy and all of his canon iterations, what physical characteristic do all of them have in common? The answer is actually very simple. It's their eyes. Across all of the different iterations of Foxy, one thing seems to remain completely unchanged, and that's the character's eye color. Go ahead and check me on that, but from what I could tell during my research, Foxy has always had the same golden yellow eyes since the very beginning. What's more, Foxy is the only member of the core 4 whose eye color has never changed. It has always been the exact same color. And while this may seem like a minor, inconsequential detail, it is not. In one of his previous game theory videos, MatPat himself said that visual design details have always been important to figuring out these games. Just FYI, I put a link to that video in the description if you want to check it out later. It is a bit old, but not so much so that it's no longer relevant. Anyway, in that same video, MatPat pointed out that in the sister location minigame, Circus Baby had blue eyes prior to snatching Elizabeth Afton, a young girl with blonde hair and green eyes. This seems to suggest that when Circus Baby was constructed, her eyes were blue, but after snatching Elizabeth, her eyes changed to the same color green we see her sporting in the main game, possibly meant to symbolize the girl's spirit taking over the robot after her death. And while these little details aren't always indicative of something major to the lore, in this case it kind of is. The reason I say that is because just like Foxy and all of his different variants across Fazbear's history, Roxanne Wolf has the exact same color eyes. So at the very least, it would appear that Roxy, despite being very different from Foxy, is a part of his family of variants. But that's not all. Remember the second hint that I gave? What special ability does Roxanne Wolf share with the original Foxy? Well, first I think I need to clarify part of that hint because some of you may have been a little confused. When you think of the original Foxy, you probably think of Captain Foxy from FNAF 1, and that's understandable, but it's also wrong. You see, FNAF 2 is actually the prequel to FNAF 1. It's a prequel sequel. And in FNAF 2, we actually saw 2 versions of Foxy, Mangle and what the fandom refers to as Withered Foxy. Withered Foxy and the other Withered animatronics were said to be the original 4. These are the original core 4 animatronics, meaning that Withered Foxy is confirmed to be the earliest version of Foxy in the FNAF timeline, and is probably the very first Foxy animatronic ever built. Now, some of you may be wondering what difference any of this makes. Well, as it relates to this theory, it's actually very significant. For those who don't know, in FNAF 2, you play as a nighttime security guard who would put on a Freddy mask to fool and avoid being killed by the animatronics. This trick worked on all of the robots except for 2, the Puppet and Withered Foxy. This version of Foxy appears to have a sort of second sight, if you will. He's able to see things that most of the other animatronics cannot. And what is it we hear about Roxanne Wolf and Security Breach? Roxy sees things differently than others. Just like Withered Foxy, Roxy has a special vision. We learn more about this later on in the game when we read the Roxy upgrade message down in Parts and Service. And when we upgrade Freddy with Roxanne's eyes, Freddy outright says to Gregory, "You look different to me." And we are actually able to see this superpower in action very early in the game. When crawling through the vents to escape Freddy's green room so that you can let him out, you'll pass the other animatronics rooms on the way. Eventually, you'll reach Roxanne's, where you'll find her having a full-blown conversation with herself. If you stick around long enough to hear her monologue, she says this.
Your fans are watching you right now. I know.
That last bit, I know, she says while looking straight at the vent where the player is in. She looks right at you. I know, it's a lot to think about, and it seems like a bit of a stretch, but trust me, if there is one thing I've learned from the game theorists, it's that FNAF does not do coincidences. And while it is entirely possible that Roxanne Wolf is just the latest and arguably most interesting addition to the Foxy family lineup, I don't think that that's the case here. I firmly believe that Roxy isn't the new Foxy. Roxanne is Foxy. You heard me right, people. Roxanne Wolf is Captain Foxy, or more accurately, she was Captain Foxy. Foxy somehow was transformed by Fazbear Entertainment from the Pirate Fox we've always known into his own successor. And if you think that sounds weird, yes, but I'm telling you, as crazy as this theory is, it is entirely plausible. So back in part 1, I briefly discussed the fact that Glamrock Bonnie, who we know did exist, is not in the game. At some point prior to the events of Security Breach, Bonnie fell victim to foul play and was decommissioned, and his position as the band's bassist was filled by Montgomery Gator. Apparently permanently. This is both infuriating and yet at the same time pretty on par with what one can expect from Fazbear Entertainment. Like I said, they weren't willing to revive one of their most popular IPs, yet they didn't seem to mind spending who knows how much money on the gargantuan beast that is DJ
Music Man!
And that is just the most recent example of just how stupid this company is when it comes to its money. However, I also mentioned how in Security Breach there's that one cutscene with Vanessa down in Parts and Services where she tells Freddy,
If you're part of this, you're scrap. Monty will run the shows until Parts and Service can slap your casing on a new endo.
Again, if making a new Freddy was that simple, why not do the same thing for good old Bonnie? But that's not really the focus of this video, so I'll just leave a big old question mark there for the rest of y'all to investigate. So just really quick before I move on, I just want to let you know that there was a lot more I had originally intended to stick into this section, but for time, sanity, and my voice box, I'm going to I've whittled it down to what I think are the more important points. So anyway, if making a new Freddy was as simple as putting his casing onto a new endoskeleton, why couldn't the reverse be true? Think about it. If you can make a new robot based on an old character or a currently existing IP, why couldn't you make a new character using an old endoskeleton? And in the case of Roxy and Foxy, it's not impossible. Looking at Captain Foxy's proportions relative to many of the other older character designs, he has a much slimmer and petite build. It's not hard to see how his endoskeleton would have been similar enough to Chica's, the only other female animatronic in the glam rock band, that he couldn't have been turned into Roxanne Wolf by fitting her casing over his endo. Of course, there are quite a few adjustments that would have to be made, such as tweaking the character's personality and AI, giving them a new voice, and a right hand. But yeah, physically speaking, it's not impossible. Really quick, I just remembered this while writing this in the recording. In the opening cutscene for Security Breach, there's one moment where Roxanne Wolf looks to the camera and flares the fingers on her right hand. It's almost as if she's showing it off. Is it foreshadowing? Maybe, maybe not. but it is a very interesting little detail that I thought was worth calling out. But really, it's Roxy's personality that stands out to me more than anything. I know I said that terms like weird and strange are very relative when talking about FNAF, but there are just certain things that Roxy does throughout the game that strikes me as odd. I'm not a psychologist, and maybe I should have consulted one before writing this section, but some of Roxy's voice lines, to me, seems to be hinting at serious self-esteem issues, past trauma, and a major identity crisis. The way she talks to herself, the things that she says and how she says them, she compliments herself on her performance the night Freddy collapses. She's constantly calling herself beautiful, the best, saying to Gregory,
"I bet I'm your favorite."
I mean, we know she's supposed to be talking to herself for some of these lines, but who is she trying to convince here? Us or herself? But it's more of the, I guess you could say, negative things that Roxy says that are probably the most telling. For example, near the end of the announcement that plays when you first enter Roxy Raceway, you'll hear Roxanne's voice say, "Sign up today and be a winner. Nobody likes a loser." And then later we hear Roxy say, seemingly to herself,
"I'm not a loser."
Yeah, I'm not really sure what to say about that one. But then you have lines like this.
"I just need a little work done."
That one line, "I just need a little work done." I don't know about you guys, but hearing Roxy say this gave me serious pause. And honestly, it's not even the most heartbreaking or even the most telling Roxy voice line that I found while researching this video. Really quick, does anyone remember hearing Roxanne say this?
"Everybody still loves me, right?"
This line, it's not a statement like most of the others. This is a question. She's asking if everybody still loves her. And note that this line is only said by Roxanne after we've decommissioned her. And that just makes these lines all the more significant. Let me explain. I've already discussed Mangle ad nauseum, but there is another instance of Foxy being out of commission that's much more relevant here. If you remember back in FNAF 1, Captain Foxy was sequestered to Pirate Cove, and an out of order sign was put up to show that Foxy was, well, out of order. He was out of commission. He could not perform. However, in FNAF VR, one of the mini games we play involves repairing Captain Foxy. Looking back, it doesn't seem like he needed a whole lot of repairs to be returned to full functionality. Or at least to what Fazbear Entertainment seems to consider full functionality. His endoskeleton was still completely exposed from the kneecaps down. Like I said, it's Fazbear Entertainment. What do you want? Still though, can you imagine how this must have made poor Foxy feel? If the VR game is anything to go by, historically, from Foxy's perspective, he really did just need a little work done. Creepy, right? But the line, "I just need a little work done," to me, it's indicative of serious past trauma. Roxanne had been broken in her past life and is scared of the potential consequences of being damaged. After all, Glamrock Bonnie was broken and promptly dumped for Monty. That's not something that I can see anyone at the Pizzaplex, human or otherwise, being unaware of. And if I'm correct, and Roxy was at one time Foxy, then Roxanne would absolutely have every right and reason to be terrified of the same thing happening to her. Or, more accurately, having it happen again. So if Roxanne Wolf was originally Captain Foxy, what the heck happened? Why did Fazbear Entertainment turn one of their most popular, beloved, and highest earning IPs into an entirely new character? And is there even a way to prove that Roxanne Wolf, both as an IP and an animatronic, is a new face at the Pizzaplex? Well, I think that there is. I'll admit, like a lot of parts to this theory, it is a pretty big stretch, but just hear me out. The biggest and honestly the only evidence that I have that could support the idea of Roxy being fairly new to the Pizzaplex is actually Roxy Raceway itself. The area, as many of us know, seems to be in a constant state of construction, reconstruction, and repair. In one of the clues, we find out that the ground on which Roxy Raceway was constructed apparently wasn't thoroughly inspected, or even inspected at all, prior to construction. Now, this could just be another excellent example of Fazbear Entertainment's general corporate stupidity. Maybe this was just the most easily and readily accessible area for development. Maybe Fazbear Entertainment, or at least someone high up on the company's hierarchy, chose this plot intentionally because of reasons. Either way, it's clear no real effort was made on the part of the company to ensure that the ground was safe and stable enough to build on. Regardless of whether there were any alternative motives behind choosing this specific location to build Roxy's attraction, the fact remains that it was built in a hurry. It was a rush job, and it was rushed because Fazbear Entertainment needed an attraction for their new character. They needed Roxanne Wolf to have her own dedicated area built and open to the public when she arrived. However, there is one final thing here that I think is worth considering. In one of the collectible duffel bags, we get this message titled Chasing Cars. Quote, Errant Behavior Report. Roxy never misses a race. She must be frying her circuits waiting for the raceway to reopen. Every time there is a test run on the track, she gets in the way. If she keeps getting in the way, the track will never get fixed. Unquote. Given everything that we've discussed thus far in this video, has anyone ever stopped to think that maybe Roxy doesn't want the track to open? Sounds kind of stupid, I know, but think about it. We've seen that Roxanne is incredibly competitive. She's aggressive, and one could even make the argument that she's also territorial. But the fact that she's preventing the raceway from being fixed is just so strange. We've seen her in the game during the cutscene leading to her boss battle that she quite literally gets in the way of our go-kart. What's more, she keeps attacking the driver assist bots and the staff bots that are being used as test drivers. Again, we know she's competitive, and yet all of her actions are making it impossible for her main dedicated area to become open to the public. She is making it so she can't race. You'd think that that would be the exact opposite of what she'd want. I will try to touch on this a bit more in depth next time when I finally discuss my overarching theory, but I'm just gonna let you guys all ruminate on that for now. Of course, none of this explains what actually happened to Foxy. What could have gone down to make Fazbear Entertainment resort to scrapping yet another popular old character and outright replacing them with someone completely new? And if Captain Foxy was here before, why don't we get any feedback from Freddy when we enter Kids Cove, like we did for Bonnie in Bonnie Bowl? Well, unfortunately, you'll just have to wait because this is where I'm going to leave off for now. Stay tuned for the third and hopefully final part of my FNAF security breach Foxy theory. In the meantime, I will leave you fans and theorists with a few more theory hints to mull over. Obviously, these hints aren't going to give you the whole picture, but if you can decipher them, then the overall idea behind my theory will hopefully become a little clearer. So, my first theory hint is this. Are we certain that the Kids Cove area we see in Security Breach is Foxy's only dedicated area? Or rather, are we certain that this is his original area? I mentioned back in part 1 that there are a few noteworthy items found in the daycare and the daycare area that can be linked to Captain Foxy in some way, such as the cutout barrel in one of the play areas and the Foxy Pirate Adventure movie poster. I'll admit that these aren't terribly suspicious. Again, there are components and callbacks to the pirate ride all over this mall. But at the same time, I can't help but wonder, why is this random buoy in the daycare? And this is not the only buoy like this found in the Pizzaplex, by the way. There is an identical buoy located in Kids Cove. And if you are able to get a good look at these things, you'll see that these aren't just simple props. They're not just sitting in these areas. These buoys are permanently fixed to the floor. They're literally part of the floor. So why is this thing here? The daycare area is run by the sun and the moon guy, right? It's not a Foxy focused area, so why would something like this be seen in the daycare? It just doesn't match up with the other aesthetic and thematic elements of this area. It's like the fact that the playground equipment from the daycare are featured in the background of the Kids Cove posters in the elevators. It's weird, right? Or is it? My second hint is this. Could there possibly be a connection between Captain Foxy, Roxanne Wolf, Montgomery Gator, and Glamrock Bonnie? Specifically, could there be a link between Foxy's absence at the Pizzaplex and Bonnie's decommission? I'm just going to say it right here, folks. I thought this one up on the fly. I didn't want to leave you with just one theory hint. But this is a very curious element that I found in the game. First of all, Monty's green room is right next door to Roxanne's. This also means that the Monty upgrade and Roxy upgrade duffel bags are right next to each other. Kind of. Moreover, the rethemed duffel bag, talking about refurbishing Bonnie Bowl, is located in Roxy's Raceway. Secondly, Foxy's dedicated area, Kids Cove, is right across the way from Monty's Gator Gulf, the very area we believe Bonnie got destroyed. One more interesting thing that I found is that in the area you'll find the duffel bag giving you the play-by-play of Bonnie's last night alive has a Foxy plushie laying on a table close by. Don't believe me? Well, there it is. I'll admit that both of these hints, the second one especially, may be reaching a little bit too far, but that's just what FNAF theorists do, I guess. And it is something to think about between now and when I finally drop part 3. A special thanks to the Five Nights at Freddy's Wiki people for providing the various voice line clips featured in this video, as well as some of the imagery. Also, thank you to the various YouTube and DeviantArt creators for the other imagery. You guys are awesome. Until next time, thanks again for watching. I can't wait to see if anyone actually catches this theory, and if they do, just how far they will run with it. I'm WaspStar986. This is Random Nation Studios. Remember to stay safe, stay awesome, and stay random. Peace.
A performance was demanded of me, and now I have delivered. Encore!